Welcome to You Are Not Alone. I am spiritual medium Erica Gabriel. This show is intended to bring expansion, understanding, and growth on our spiritual paths and journeys. This is a safe place to explore all things spiritual and beyond. Please remember, I am not a licensed therapist or medical doctor. Seek immediate professional help if you need mental health or physical health support. Hello, friends. Welcome back. Welcome back to You Are Not Alone. How's everybody doing? Oh my goodness, I have had the best time doing this season of You Are Not Alone. It's the craziest thing. Like, each season is so different. And each time I go to record, I have butterflies in my stomach. Isn't that so funny? Because now I know a lot of you and I know you're listening. So I'm like, oh my God, like, should I clean up my language? Should I write a script here? You know, like that creeps in my mind. And then I'm just like, no, I'm just going to keep on going because we're all been so connected now for so long. This show, God, how many years? Almost 5 years. So you guys know me. So if I started acting different, you'd write me like, what the hell happened to you, girl? I thought you were one of us. So I'm just having a blast. And what's been really cool, especially this season, is finding or being introduced to or being brought together with guests that are bringing something to us that we've never heard about before or that we're learning about. You know, you guys are all spiritual seekers. Some of you, this is like the first spiritual seeking you've ever done is listen to this podcast. Some of you are long since spiritual seekers. But the thing that I feel like we are still doing together is learning. We're just still growing. We're still learning. And it's been just so fun finding people that are bringing something really different and really new to us, to our consciousness, to our awareness. You know, sometimes you hear someone talk and you're like, that didn't vibe with me, but that felt good because then I got to think about what I think about that, you know, and it's just continuous growing. So when I found out and was introduced to the guest today, I took a minute to just tap in with my feelings. As you guys know, I just have on people that I trust, that I feel safe with, that spirit gives me the okay. And I really looked into her and what she's doing and all of the things that she knows about that, well, one, I don't really know about. There's a bunch of things that I don't know about. And there's things that I just think she puts in a certain way that's going to really help everyone understand and also learn something new. So thanks for joining me. And I want to introduce her now. She is a world-renowned creator of Hypno Fertility. She's an expert in spirit babies and pink starlights. This is new for us, you guys. She's been featured on multiple shows, including on ABC and CBS News. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on this show. Welcome, Lynsi Eastburn.
Hi, Erica. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm thrilled to have you. And like, that's why I was telling everyone, you know, I'm having so much fun because getting to meet you and getting to bring this information forward is just so exciting. And it's something so different. So thank you for coming on. Since there's
absolutely.
so much new information here, I'm going to ask you questions that you're like, that, you know, may seem obvious, but it's not. And there's so many things I want to learn about. So what made you drawn to working with women and fertility? And can you tell everyone exactly what hypnotherapy is?
Absolutely. And sometimes it's a long story and different parts of it come out when I talk about it. It was definitely decided for me by spirit. And when I was a little child, I used to be so concerned that women that wanted a baby wouldn't be able to have one. And it really used to bother me. And I can remember just being 9 years old and I was sitting in the backseat of my parents' car. I remember this so clearly. And they announced on the radio that the first test tube, if you will, baby, was born in England. And I just had this relief flow through me. It was, oh my gosh, thank goodness that women who want a baby, who really love a baby, will be able to have them. Okay, great. And so then, fast forwarding, when I got into my hypnotherapy practice, women started coming in to ask if I could help with getting pregnant. Hypnosis is well known for helping with phobias. And so needle phobia is one of the early things, because you can't do IVF where you're going to be getting, 70, 80, 100 or more injections, and have a fear of needles. It just doesn't work. And then the stress causes more pain and all of that. So working with that. And then it just seemed women just started coming in. Can you help me? Can you help me with this? And I said, sure. I knew that the things that went on with infertility, hypnosis is well known for, like helping with anxiety and stress and nervous system regulation and removing subconscious blocks, emotional blocks, that kind of thing. Interestingly, there wasn't anything out there to do with hypnosis and fertility. I mean, it was known for childbirth. It was known for your typical smoking and weight loss. And so I just got to work with it. I just was like, okay, let's go. Let's see what happens. And then I had all of these babies showing up.
On Earth or in your awareness?
Oh, on Earth. Yeah. First, yeah. Yeah. On Earth, they showed up in the awareness too. But
Yeah, exactly. Wait, can I ask you a quick question before I forget? Why are people so afraid of needle? I know people with massive needle phobias, like hysterical. Is that a past life thing? I don't want to lose that. And I just wanted to ask you that really quickly.
Yeah, no, it can be past life for sure. And one of the interesting things that happens with phobias is they're not always caused by what the issue is. And so it's more of the feeling that goes along with it. And so now it's possible someone had an experience as a child where, somebody had to hold them down while they got a shot, or things like that. Something may have gone over the top for them and caused a fear, or they may have seen something, because sometimes it's like maybe they're there and they witness, an ambulance show up and put somebody on the stretcher or the gurney and start working on them. It can be things like that, but it can also be that they fell off the swing set and hurt themselves, and then something else happened along the way, like, along their lives, and that compounds the feeling that they had. Might have been fear, pain, and the subconscious kind of uses what's handy. And so oftentimes that'll manifest in a phobia. So it could be related to something to do with needles. It could be past life, and it could be an expression of stress, anxiety, trauma, some kind of subconscious issue as well.
Thank you for answering that. I know that was kind of an offshoot, but thank you.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, it's kind of a long answer.
Please, long answer us. We're fascinated. Like, we are fascinated. I mean, me and the listeners, like, we're fascinated. We want to hear it all. So thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes when something happens, like, infertility, suddenly getting this diagnosis, which is such a shock for so many people, then that bypasses, the critical part of the mind, and it just embeds right in the subconscious mind. And so then it can manifest that way also. The stress of, or maybe not wanting to do IVF or things like that. So that was one of the issues that was coming up early on. And then also women were being told, you have less than 1% of having 1% chance of having a baby. You have less than, 1% chance of ever getting pregnant. Go home, figure out how to live your life childless, look into adoption, things like that. Or you're not a candidate for IVF. And this was even way before donor eggs were a thing. And that's just like a whole other part of this. But, and they would come and see me, and then they were getting pregnant, and they were getting pregnant naturally when they were told they weren't, even a candidate for medical treatment, or they would switch clinics and they would end up, having a successful pregnancy, different things like that. And so I had this connection to babies, and I always felt the spirit babies. And they would say to me, this was, I think, what really drew me in was, I feel like there's a baby there. They said no. They said absolutely not. They said it's not possible, but I feel like there's a baby there. And I always said, I believe you. I believe you. And so all of a sudden I'm working with fertility. There's nothing out there. So I'm developing my own program as I go. And it's just coming together. So I said, okay, universe, yes. And it's kind of funny at one point because I was doing some weight loss and I was doing general hypnotherapy. I'm in practice with my husband. We had a general practice. And so I was like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to end up being like the fertility hypnosis person? And I actually had a life purpose regression. And I had and it was kind of funny because the woman whose baby, who's now in his 20s, it's on the front of my first book on the cover. She ended up training with us and then she was working with Hypno Fertility as well. And so I had her do a life purpose regression for me just to see. And sure enough, that's what I was supposed to be doing. And the whole thing, I described it in my book. The whole thing came together and it was like, okay, yes, this is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, I'm going to jump in with both feet. I knew it, but sometimes you want validation.
Totally. Absolutely. I love husband and wives that work together.
It's really great.
It's so cool. It's so cool. So yeah, so with what you're saying, so there's a couple things I want to ask you with that. I think, in our society, just on so many levels, not just here, but on so many level, women are blamed. Women are blamed. You know what I mean? It's like, even this is so dumb, but just bear with me. Like, I was reading this article as I was falling asleep, and it's like J Lo and Ben Affleck divorce again. What did she do? Why can't she keep a man? This, that, the other. It's like, holy moly, women are blamed and blamed and blamed again. And even if someone cheats on a woman, it's like, why didn't she give him, like, it's so horrible. And so how do you work with hypnosis and someone working on themselves when they can't get pregnant to not blame themselves, like, and turn it negative? Does that make sense, my question?
Oh, it's a big part of it. Women, we blame ourselves and women take responsibility themselves, even when it's strictly male factor. When there's, no issue on her side, the women still take the responsibility and they're the ones that do the research and they're the ones that are trying to decide what should be done. Should we have supplements and acupuncture and all of these? And then they end up stressing out, which ends up causing a problem for them. So part of what I work with and I tell people is the baby's the icing on the cake. You have to get your life back. You have to be able to have a conversation with a friend without having it running through the back of your mind. Am I ovulating? Am I going to have enough cervical mucus? Is that clinic going to be the right one? And, because this becomes just rolls around in their heads and they become obsessed with it, even when they're trying so hard not to. And what we resist persists, right? And so the harder they're trying, the longer it goes on, the worse it gets. So yes, I work with self-esteem and what we call in hypnosis ego strengthening, which at the deepest level. So it's not ego as, we tend to think of ego as a bad thing, but it's that self and it's that strengthening ourselves internally with hypnosis. And a lot of it is hypnosis helps you go into a very deep state. And the interesting thing is even if you don't feel like you're in a deep state, that's what we work with because that's in accessing the subconscious mind. And so removing blocks or old patterns. I think women end up with these issues because they are blamed right from the beginning. So often they tend to take, or parents will still do this kind of thing where, well, you're the girl, you should be doing this, or you should be responsible, or boys will be boys. That's changing big time now, but that's what we're dealing with adults at this point.
Do you, when people go into hypnosis, do you bump into past lives and past life regression?
Yeah.
Like, you're just like, whoa, what's that? And they're like, I'm in a cave fighting a saber tooth, or whatever, like.
Oh, for sure. I can do past life regression intentionally with somebody, but also they can just pop into a past life. And yeah, you usually catch on pretty quick when they've done that because you're like, what? Wait, what happened? And, I don't know if you read Brian Weiss's Many Lives, Many Masters. And that was one of the books that got me interested in doing, becoming a hypnotherapist because, he accidentally, nobody could help that woman. And then he accidentally puts her back 2000 years or whatever it was. And he's like, wait, what?
It's such a great book. You know what I mean? It's so good. Yeah, that's so cool. Um, are there people who come to this earth, they are not able to bear their own child. They came to adopt. They came to have a child that is actually born through someone else's vessel, but that is the soul that chose them. So they are their parents, right? Which all adoptive parents are. They're their parents, but they had a karmic contract to come through someone else to help fulfill some of their life purpose and their, evolvement or whatever it may be. Are there some people that are meant to adopt? Because I'm a big advocate for adoption, and that's like one of the charities that I love and um, work with or support as much as I can, called Help Us Adopt .org. So I'm a huge, just as a medium, what I've found from adoptive people and people that adopt. So you have seen that people are meant to be adopted and be adopted parents.
Yes, but what's interesting is they don't always know it. They don't always remember, even though they may have the soul contract. And one of the issues is women become so obsessed with trying to get pregnant, they don't even want to talk about adoption. They don't want to talk about any other options. I use an affirmation, if you will, a hypnotic suggestion. Your baby's coming to you in just the right time and in just the right way. Now that could be adopting a 14-year-old, or a newborn baby, or using embryo adoption or donor eggs or IVF or natural conception or whatever else it might be. At first, when I work with people, it's such a sensitive thing. So like I say, the baby's the icing on the cake. So getting their life back, but I have no attachment to, I don't tell people. And that's what happens a lot is other practitioners just tell them what to do. Well, this is going to be hopeless. And, it may not be hopeless. The baby's coming truly in the right time and in the right way. And it's a matter of the work that people end up doing to align with that. So part of the work I do is help you align with your spirit baby, help with that connection. And then in doing the hypnosis and working together, then that's when they know. And I had this one client, it was just fascinating because she had adopted a little boy and she had been told that she would never be able to carry a baby. She'd never be able to get pregnant. Even with IVF, they had said she needed a gestational carrier. So she worked with me. She did some work with me. It was basically around hypnosis for carrying the baby. And she didn't expect to be trying to get pregnant, so to speak, other than, me working with her. And I could do that. I can work with a gestational carrier, or I can work with the person who's trying to get pregnant to help them align with the carrier, whether they ever, do anything with hypnosis or not. But anyway, ultimately, when she went back to the doctor ended up telling her, "Oh, it looks like you can carry your own baby."
Wow.
And so that's what ended up happening. So they were off. This is in my book, this story, because I talked about the siblings a lot, which is another whole interesting thing. And they were driving back from the embryo transfer. And the little boy was sitting in the back seat because he's about 5 and he's talking. And she turned around. She said, "I can't hear you." He said, "It doesn't matter. I'm talking to my sister."
Oh, yes.
And sure enough, she was pregnant and sister was born,
That was my second baby. She was just like, hello. Like she was
Yep.
hanging right here. Like,
Yeah.
let's go. My kids are 17 months apart. They were like,
Right.
we're coming in
Right.
together.
Yep.
Yeah.
They definitely have a say in it. And so she had needed to adopt her son first. That was just part of the agreement and the way that they ended up, she adopted him because of the issues that, she wasn't going to be able to carry a baby and so on and so forth. So that needed to happen so that she could do that. So sometimes it works in sort of a roundabout way. And then I've had clients where, I remember one woman, she just came in and she was just yelling and she said, "I was adopted. I don't want to be adopted or I don't want to adopt. If I adopt, everyone will know that I've adopted." And I said, "Okay, all right." And so let's just move from here. I didn't say, "Oh, well, you should consider adopt." I didn't say anything. I just said, "Okay." And we started working. About 3, 4 sessions later, she came in, she said, "I'm going to adopt." And I said, "Cool." And she said, "I filled out the application. I started it rolling." I said, "Great." Because sometimes you have to hold the space for people to come into that awareness, themselves. It's like a step-by-step process almost, except you're working with the subconscious, and working in the subconscious is connecting to spirit as well.
That's amazing. Does everyone choose their parents?
I think so. And I'm, when I first heard of that concept, I'm like, no, I never would
Oh,
have done that.
I
Why,
cannot tell you how many people say that to me. They're like, "There's no way." I'm like, "Way. Yes, there is, because
Yep.
you're choosing a parent so
Yeah.
that can support certain lessons, whether they're, quote, good or bad."
It's absolutely true, and then we become what we are. We get guided to where we need to be because of all of that, and that's another part of my Hypno Fertility story. Was I had my one son, and then I wasn't, to be having another one, and all of a sudden this spirit baby showed up and basically spoke to me. He said, "Hi." He says, "I'm your son, and I'm going to be born." And I said, "No, you're not, because I'm not having another child." And he said, "Yes, I am, and my name is Dylan, and I'm coming through." So then all of these, things had to unfold for this to happen. And he did. He came through. And then as soon as he could talk, he would tell me about, he said, "Yeah, I picked you." And, and he would talk like in little 2-year-old talk about these things. But he would, even till this day, he doesn't want to talk about it anymore because he's almost 30. But um, he's like, "Yeah, mom, okay." But yeah, even when he was 16 and I was writing the 3 Keys to Conception, I did like a little interview with him, and he could still sense into the babies, and he could do that then. And yeah, and so he would tell me information, just a whole other layer. So all of this also went into becoming hypnofertility. So clearly I came in with that connection to babies and to really wanting, and it's not that I'm about any old person that wants a baby, you should have a baby, but people that really want a family, want a child, want to love these children, that's where my heart is or lies.
Have you noticed, just in the time that you've been practicing, that there is so much more infertility right now?
Yeah, there does seem to be. It's become an epidemic, basically. I was giving a talk a few years ago. It was about medical hypnosis. And one of the other speakers was talking about pain control, and said something in his information about the $1 billion industry. And I said, "That's interesting." So I started Googling, and lo and behold, infertility is a $1 billion industry. And the money, oh my gosh, the money that goes into it. And it's different from one country to another. I work with people all over the world, so I have some insight into how it is. And so it's different in different countries. It's different in different states. When I started doing this work, there was basically no insurance coverage for infertility. And now there is more. There's, in a lot of cases, a lot of rules around that, but there is more, or in some cases, in the UK, for example, they have that, I forget what they call it. Is it the HSA? Something like that, their health system. And they could have the IVF covered, but they didn't really get or feel like they were getting the quality or the state of the art treatment that you would get to pay for it privately. So a lot of that was going on. So it's just, yeah.
So, what I have heard is that there's spirit babies, indigo children, rainbow children, star seeds, crystal children, and pink starlights. And, people ask me about them a lot. People ask me about, more than you would believe, what planet they've come from. And like, which is cool. I mean, people are very, very into aliens as well right now. And I think people feel so sad and upset here on Earth. And I think, I have no doubt that people come from all different realms. Absolutely. And I think a lot of people want a reason for how they feel. So they're like, well, I'm not from here. I'm seeded here from Andromeda or whatever. So that's why I feel so horrible. So I'm not going to give a shit about this life. You know what I mean? Sometimes. So I don't know if you've experienced that, but can you briefly tell me, spirit babies, indigo, rainbow, star seeds, crystal, and then pink starlights. So we understand. This was like what really drew me. I'm like, well, what are all these? I know in the 90s, a lot of one of these were coming of age teens and 20s. And then we had Prozac Nation, where all of these kids, people were like, they're not normal. They have plugs in their ears and they're listening to crazy music and they're artistic and they can't sit still and let's chock them full of drugs. You know what I mean? By the way, I'm not anti medicine. I just want to say that to everyone listening at all. I have doctors in my family. I'm not anti medicine. I'm anti, you seem different. Let me give you toxic medicine that's not good for your body. So I just wanted to clarify that, and people that listen know that. So I know a lot of the healers were completely destroyed in the 90s, and I know there's a new crop. So I don't know, what are the difference between these?
Yeah, so a lot of cognitive dissonance going on our planet right now. And it needs to be, because there's a huge shift happening and an old paradigm is breaking down. And these babies are helping with this. But yeah, when we have cognitive dissonance, we want to calm that down. We want to have a reason. We don't like when we don't know things. We don't like when things don't make sense. So definitely, I hear a lot about that too, and like galactics and so forth. I don't know a ton about the different ones, other than, the indigos came through more so in like the 60s and so forth, when all of that, make love, not war, uh, ideology was trying to come through. And indigos the purpose is to break things down, to crash old ways of doing things. And, you've seen organized religion, really change. A lot of people have withdrawn from that, and it used to just be so standard. And the way, you remember the 80s and the women in their power suits, and those big shoulders and all of that, but it was part of this shift and change that women didn't have to be in the home, and just more acceptance across the board. I found out that I'm an indigo. I didn't like that term, because when I first started hearing it, it had gotten into the mainstream.
Is this like who are boomers now?
No, they're Gen X basically.
Wow, the indigos are Gen X.
Gen X, yes, Gen X. Most of them are Gen X. Yeah. And you can see all the changes. There were a lot of Gen X was latchkey kids, and things were, shifting and changing even at that time, that things were pretty stable for the most part, or I don't even want to say stable, but expected. You had your happy days, you had your leave it to Beaver.
Oh, totally. And also, look at the world, right? Like, I look at my grandma. She lived through 2 world wars, a depression, like Vietnam, like the amount of stuff, presidents getting shot, like the amount of stuff that she lived through. And then, like, here I come, born in 19 whatever it was, and and I'm like, nothing really, like, it was. And then we had 9/11, of course, which was unfucking believably traumatic. But I'm saying, in relation, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's why I didn't really want to use the word stable, because it's not really stable to go through depression and wars and all
No,
of that.
that was like my grandma, but for Gen Xers, we didn't have all that.
No, but I mean, that's what I mean when I said it was kind of like the family, that nuclear family, I think they call it that, and the mom's home and the white picket fence and all of that. So, but that's not really stable in the sense that it was still those people going through the wars and going through the depression. But it was still basically the template, if you will, that went on for years and years and decades, and then even beyond that. So yeah, indigos start showing up. I think a few of them may have come through before. I think Gen X is 1964 and beyond. I'm Gen X, proud of it. But I didn't like the term indigo, because it had gotten into the mainstream, and this would have been in like the 1990s. And a lot of people were using it as an excuse basically for not parenting their children. Gen Xers, one of the things, we saw these movies where you got locked in the department store overnight and you just had a ball, right? You jumped on all the beds and you did all down the escalators or whatever, you ate all the candy. But we wanted to bring that into so-called reality. And so a lot of us kind of overdid it with our kids.
Look at Home Alone, a treasured classic. I rewatched it with my kids last year. I was like, holy crap, I hate this movie. This movie's awful. This is a
Yeah.
horrible movie.
Yep.
I'm like, this is the worst. And they're abusive. They abuse him before they leave and lock him up in his room. And it's awful. And it's like that. Yeah. But yeah, yeah.
But it was that's a kid's dream though, like to get locked in a toy store, or just have
Yes, that's
kids
what I'm
access
saying.
to it.
Yeah.
And so we brought a lot of that through, but then we didn't give the kids, and I'm not saying punishment, but discipline, structure. Like this is not acceptable. That's not acceptable. I couldn't believe how many people would drive around from one McDonald's to another 50 miles or more to get the Beanie Baby or the little Muppet thing or whatever it was that was being collected at the time. And these children would like throw a fit if they didn't get that one. That's not okay because kids need to have structure and they need to have, guidance, and they need to be able to sort of push, they need boundaries. And so what I found was happening was people weren't parenting their children and then they were saying, oh, they're indigos. I can't parent them. They won't listen to me. They don't do well. You're the parent. So,
Indigo's got screwed a little bit, Yeah.
yeah. Well, the actual indigos weren't necessarily the ones that they were calling indigos. It just, like I said, it caught on in the mainstream. And then that was just something that people were throwing around all the time. And so I didn't like the term. And one time I was in my office, this was when the spirit babies started to show up for me to see them. And one of my clients I could see her aura and it was indigo from her shoulder down to like her elbow. And I wanted to see what that meant. And I was trying to look that up. All I kept getting was indigo children, and then indigo adults. So I did this quiz. I'm like, oh my, I am this. And it's not what this mainstream idea is. This is people that indigos had a tough time of it when they came in. They had to learn how to fight. They had to be this way because they had to be able to say no. And, women with a lot of issues with saying no, women being raised to be so polite that even gets women into trouble from this. This was something that women were raised with. So indigos, boys, girls, whatever, but being tougher to be able to break things down, to be able to say no, to be able to rebel, a lot of a rebelliousness to the indigos. So then crystal children, softer, more, indigos are psychic too, but it's just a different energy, but more of a psychic connection, more of an awareness. That would be my son that came through. Very psychic, very compassionate, very tuned in. And then rainbows, and that's an interesting one because people call babies that are born after a loss rainbow babies, and that's not the same thing. That's kind of on in the fertility world where people say, "Oh, our rainbow baby finally arrived," meaning a baby that's born after loss. But the rainbows also energetically. So the idea of the indigos with an indigo aura and the crystals with a clear quartz type of aura so that they can do the colors kind of thing. And then the rainbows with a rainbow aura, is my understanding they're born from the crystals. So when the crystal children would get together, then they end up with the rainbows.
Mm.
So that's my understanding about those. Star seeds, a whole different thing. That term was out for quite a while. Then it sort of vanished. And then all of a sudden it seems like it's back again.
It's hot again. It is super
It
hot.
is. It
Yeah.
is. And a lot of there's spirit baby readers now, which there didn't used to be. Usually people would just talk to a psychic and the psychic would say, oh yeah, you've got a boy or a girl or something. But now there are people that specialize in that.
When you say spirit baby, it's simple. It's the baby's in spirit.
Babies in spirit or energetic,
Yes.
if you want to call it that. It's not, the baby's not here in the world
Got
of
it.
solid.
And a lot of times when you see them, they don't look like babies, right? They're just like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So sometimes
Exactly.
I'll see quote babies and it's like a 25-year-old dude and he's like, yeah, getting ready, Yeah.
Yeah. It's easier to call them spirit babies when you're working with, fertility and that type of thing, because that's what that's what we're interested in. Right. But yeah, so the starseed, so now there's all of these spirit baby readers. So Walter McKitchen, I don't know if I pronounced his name right. I hope so, but he had written a book in about 2005. It was right around the time that It's Conceivable, my first book, came out. And someone sent it to me because they kind of came out at the same time. And he was a spirit baby reader. The first one that I am aware of that was actually really specializing in it and doing readings for people. And then when I would have clients, they would say, "Oh, I had a reading with Walter and this is what he said." And now there's like a lot
Yeah.
of spirit baby reader specialists. And so they tap in differently. So one of them that I was talking to was saying, star seeds can be more like an umbrella. So you're an indigo star seed or you're, whatever, pink starlight star seed, that kind of thing. And then I hear a lot about galactics as one of the terms. And so that would be like the aliens and then there's the different dimensions. There's the different realms, if you will, different planets. That's not where I tend to go. That's not my forte.
Well, people are really they're very into like these aliens here on Earth, and people have asked me like, are there reptilians here and all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, that is not where my guides and I really work a lot in that realm. So I hear you, but people do ask. That's why I wanted to know with the star seeds and the crystals.
Oh, no, that's why I have to know what they are too, because people, will ask me. And when I was working early on with the spirit babies, they didn't say what they were. They didn't care. It didn't matter. It was my job is to get them here. That's my skill set, right? Is to help get them through. And so it didn't really matter. It didn't seem to matter to them. I learned, about Dylan being a crystal in hindsight, later on when I started researching and learning about this, like, oh, that makes sense. Okay. So the pink starlights are the babies that I work with. And they showed up about 2016 to me and said, okay, we are our own group. We're our own species, whatever. We're our own cohort, and we're called Pink Starlights. At first, they didn't tell me what they were called, but they said that this was going to come through to me. And I was talking to a friend of mine. We call each other witchy sisses, known her forever. And you know how it happens when you're talking to somebody and the energy gets higher and higher or hotter, if you will, and that spiritual thing. And then the Pink Starlights kind of burst into that and started giving us all sorts of information. And not too long afterward, I got the name Pink Starlights. And so the Pink Starlights, they chose this name Pink because it's unconditional love. They work with very high frequency love, very high level love. And Starlight because, well, there's a lot that goes into the whole Starlight thing, but also very much brilliance, very powerful light. There's a lot of light needing to come into the earth. So there's that denseness of energy. There's that darkness, if you will. Not that dark is a bad thing per se, but we're needing more light because we're advancing, we are evolving, we are transitioning, we are transforming, all of those words. And so the Pink Starlights, they have their own purpose. They work with, basically, they have a certain alignment with their parents. Now they've expanded the information more for me for others that are not just those struggling with infertility, but they have a very particular purpose.
Who came through around 2013 and 2014?
Well, that may very well be the Pink Starlights. Like they didn't tell me what they wanted to be called until about 2016. But I have babies or children. I call them all my babies. I must have I have a lot of babies. But yeah, I have some that are older than they would be in 2016 if they were born in 2016, like double digits for sure. So I don't, and it's not to say they wouldn't still be crystals or rainbows, or there may not be any of those things, or they may be pink starlights. I'll tell you more about it. You look like you have another question.
No,
So
I love it. I think that's so amazing. And I just see that there's a lot of like healers popping up now, quote
yeah,
unquote. I hate the word healer, but for lack of a better word, popping up. So I just wonder, they all kind of they're like in their like late 20s right now. And they're all just like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to help people, and you're like, that's beautiful, but you have to figure out how.
yeah. And that would likely be crystals. If they're in their late 20s, thereabouts. Um, and indigos showed up. I don't think anybody's limited. They can come when they want to. I think there was more of a time when certain ones were coming through. It was, the the job they had, if you will. Like the Indigos, those are the ones I know about the most, partially because I am one. And it's always funny because I end up having people that I talk to do a quiz and they're like, oh my gosh, me too.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And, breaking down, and for what I've done, I've been a pioneer in a lot of areas. I had to be able to do that. I had to be able to hold the space. I had to go up against a lot of men in this world because my field was very male dominated. And I've heard a lot of times, well, who cares? Who cares about infertility? What big deal? I'm like, I don't know, 50% of the population, not including their partners, women, so it was something. I got yelled at. I got all sorts of
Oh my
things in
gosh.
my field. It
I
was
have been yelled at so badly during I have been seriously yelled at so much during readings. People can get very aggressive. Yes, I understand that.
Yeah, I would mostly get yelled at by people in the field,
Oh my gosh.
because it was a very male-dominated field, and, I'd be at a conference or whatever, and, oh my goodness, yeah, president of an organization, whole thing. And so then I laugh because I'm like, "Oh, there's my indigo." There's where I need that. I can't be reduced to a puddle of tears and then just, go home and, knit a sweater or something, right? Which is how that's a big paradigm that's coming down now too, because there's still that very male, masculine, and I don't mean against men, but that masculine out of balance energy that's still trying to put that on us.
This is so incredible, and what you do is so fascinating to me. How can people work with you? How can they connect with you? How can they read your book? Tell me the names of your book. I think you have 2 books, right?
Yeah, I have 3 actually.
You have 3, excuse me. Yeah, tell us the names of your books, how people can find you, work with you, follow you, all of the above.
Oh, thanks. That's the test of my memory now. It's Conceivable Hypnosis for Fertility. That's the first one I wrote. I did a second edition in 2017 to, update with all the technology that was going on, but it's very much about how the subconscious works and how hypnosis can help people that are trying to conceive. Um, the 3 Keys to Conception, Pregnancy Against All Odds. That's the second one I wrote. And it really was kind of about the evolution of things evolving, more into the spiritual aspect. I've always been spiritual, but more and more of that and more of the spirit babies. And the 3 Keys to Conception, which I received in meditation right around the time when I was getting ready to bring my spirit baby son in that decided he was coming in, whether I liked it or not. And so that became the crux of Hypno Fertility and all of that. So that was my second one. And then I was very happy. I was like, okay, good. I've gotten everything out that I want to be, have out there. And along came the Pink Starlights. So they downloaded a book to me and they said, okay, you've got to get our information out there. And so it's called Waiting in the Wings, Introducing the Pink Starlights. And so that's basically where I'm at right now, is introducing the Pink Starlights, or getting their information out there. They're like, we want to be mainstream and people need to know about us. And people really do, because of the shifts that are happening right now are rapid. And, they're upsetting in the sense like people just feel sort of not on stable ground, but they're actually positive. They need to happen.
That is so beautiful. And what's your website and Instagram handle?
Hypnofertility.com is the website. And then Instagram, I believe, is Hypno Fertility as well.
That's so awesome. I am so honored and happy you came on this show and that you brought all this incredible information and your expertise to us. And I just thank you so much. So everyone follow Lynsi and go to her website. Hopefully you can work with her. I'm sure she's very booked, but this was really, really amazing and something so incredible and so new. I thank you so much. And everyone listening, I hope you enjoyed this one. I know I did. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. You can always follow me at Spiritual Medium Erica, or reach out info@ericagabriel.com. I love you all so much. And if you take nothing else away from this podcast, take with you that you are not alone. Thank you, Lynsi. God bless you guys. Thanks for listening. I love you, thinking of you, and we'll see you soon.